is where you can get your copy of this book. And something else you can get a copy of from us is this brochure, which right now we are in the process of updating, revising, and reissuing for the current election season. It is called Voting with a Clear Conscience. And this is something that I'm going to go through the 10 points in this book with you very briefly. You can find this and commentary on it at prolifevote.com. That's our main election page. But just the title should tell us something right away. Voting with a clear conscience. Something that we do with a clear conscience or with a guilty conscience is a moral activity, right? It's an activity that we choose to do or not to do, that we choose to do the right way or the wrong way. So as soon as we say voting with a clear conscience, we're acknowledging that the act of voting is a moral act. It has moral dimensions. It's a human choice. And therefore, it has something to do with morality. We don't say doing things that we do automatically with a clear conscience. We don't talk about digesting our food with a clear conscience or our heart beating with a clear conscience. These things happen. The body does these things automatically. It's not a choice that we make to do them. But when it comes to voting, we are making a conscious, deliberate decision between two or more options. And therefore, it has a moral component, and therefore, it's a matter of either virtue or sin, and therefore, it's a matter of either coming closer to God or going farther away from Him. And because it has to do with human choice, it has to do with morality, and therefore, we, priests who are supposed to be teachers of morality, have something to say about it. And that's part of the answer to the question that some people ask, why should priests be talking about voting, elections, and politics? Well, because of what we just said. It has a moral component. It carries a moral dimension. It's a matter of moral activity and choices, and therefore we have something to say about it, and the church has something to say about it, and religion has something to say about it. It is a fallacy, it is a mistake to say that religion and politics don't mix. They do. They do. They mix very, very strongly and integrally when it comes to human choices in the political arena. Of course, religion and politics mix, unless you want religion to be disconnected from daily life. Is that what it's supposed to be? Oh, yes, Lord, we follow you, but except for these portions of our life where we just, Lord, just never mind about these sections of our life. We're just going to block them out from anything having to do with you or your word or what is right or what is wrong or what you command us or what you want us to do in this life or how we come close to you or virtue or sin. Is there any aspect of our life, any set of our human choices that are disconnected from the kingship of Almighty God? If not, then let's stop saying that religion and politics don't mix. If not, then let's stop saying that priests shouldn't talk about politics. Either certain dimensions of life are completely disconnected from the lordship of Jesus Christ, or we have something to say about all kinds of human choices. So that's, first of all, where the title of this comes from. Voting with a clear conscience, voting in such a way that we know that we've pleased God, we know that at least we've tried to please Him, we've tried to do what is good, and we've tried to do what is good for all our brothers and sisters around us. 10 points in this brochure. Point number 1, one word piece of advice: vote. Exercise the duty and privilege to vote. People have fought and died for that freedom. The Catechism of the Church in paragraph 2240 says submission to authority and co-responsibility for the common good make it morally obligatory to exercise the right to vote. In other words, you don't sit out the election. You don't say it doesn't matter. You don't say, they're all crooked anyway, or it's no use. You don't say that. You go and you exercise your responsibility to vote. As the bishops have written in Living the Gospel of Life, every voice matters in the public forum, every vote counts. And therefore, we start with making sure that we are registered to vote, and the vote not only in the general election, but in the primaries. Use the different methods of making sure your vote gets cast. If you can't be at the polling place on election day, there is early voting in many states, and there are absentee ballots. So use all these different mechanisms, and you can get information on all of this at prolifevote.com. And of course, pray for wisdom for yourself and for others as you make your voting decisions. Electionprayer.com. You'll find a beautiful prayer there. Interdenominational, nonpartisan prayer in English and in Spanish. There is lots of wisdom there to seek from the Lord as we make these choices. That's point number one, vote. Point number two, know the candidates. Your vote is not supposed to be a shot in the dark or some kind of, just throwing an arrow and find out where it lands. In the voting booth, it's a terrible feeling to have, like, oh, these are complete strangers, these candidates, I've never heard their names. Find out first, it's public information, who are these candidates, where do they stand on the various issues. Look up their websites, look at their statements on the different issues, look at their voting record, find out where these candidates stand. And again, we have a special website devoted to this called votinginfo.org. Votinginfo.org gives you guidelines on how to find out where the candidates stand. The third point here about voting with a clear conscience, reject the disqualified. If a candidate came to you and said, I support terrorism, would you consider voting for that person? Would you say, oh, well, sir, I disagree with you on terrorism, but what's your health care plan? I don't think you would say that. I don't think any voter would say that. You realize that certain positions that they take or might take are so radically inconsistent with the whole idea of public service that taking those positions disqualifies them from any consideration for public service. You wouldn't vote for somebody who supports terrorism, no matter how good their positions are on other issues, right? You start by rejecting the disqualified. My brothers and sisters, how is an act of violence that tears a baby to shreds any better than an act of violence that tears an adult to shreds? How is it morally different? Exactly how is abortion any better than terrorism? It's not. It is not. It is the destruction, the violent destruction of an innocent human being. Deliberate, violent destruction. So what I'm saying is this. A candidate who comes along and declares that he or she is in support of legal abortion is disqualified from public office. You don't have to look any further at any of their other positions. They're out of consideration. They have disqualified themselves morally from even being considered for a vote. John Paul II wrote this, above all, the common outcry which is justly made on behalf of human rights, for example, the right to health, to home, to work, to family, to culture, is false and illusory. If the right to life, the most basic and fundamental right, and the condition for all other personal rights, is not defended with maximum determination. That was in a document called Christi Fidelis Laici in 1988. You see what he says? He's saying the same thing. You disqualify yourself. You don't defend the basic fundamental right to life, and your claims to stand for other rights, your policies on all these other issues are an illusion, he says. It's false. Those claims are false. You have rendered them false. by taking a stand against the most fundamental right, the right to life. Okay, so that's point number 3. Reject the disqualified. And by the way, who the disqualified are is up to them, not up to us. Some people accuse me of being partisan. And did I decide what the positions of the Democrat and Republican parties would be on abortion? I had absolutely nothing to do with that decision. Do I decide where a candidate stands on abortion and who supports abortion all throughout pregnancy? Did I decide that? Whether what I say is going to seem to favor or to discredit a particular candidate or party is their choice, not mine. They're not coming to me saying, oh, what position should I take on abortion? I'm not telling them what their position is going to be on abortion. They're deciding it, they're saying it, they're publicizing it, they're taking the stand, and therefore they have to take the responsibility. My message is always going to be the same. You don't kill babies. My message is always the same. You don't elect people who believe in killing babies. My message is always the same. Candidate A is going to take a pro-life position. Candidate B is going to take a pro-abortion position. Party A is going to support the unborn. Party B is going to reject the unborn. Did I make those decisions? Or did they? And so if my message helps them or hurts them or appears to be partisan, is that my choice? Or is it their choice? Point number 4, distinguish policy from principle. There are many different policies on which good people can disagree. What's the best way to reduce crime in your neighborhood? Let's just start with that. I don't know what the best way is to reduce crime in your neighborhood. I'm not sure the dimensions of the problem in your neighborhood. I'm not sure how big your neighborhood is. I'm not sure what the condition of the police force might be, what laws there might be in place already. Well, let's examine those things, and candidates running for public office in your neighborhood need to examine all those different circumstances. And people can come to different conclusions about what the best next steps would be to reduce crime in their neighborhood, right? So, differences in policy are matters of debate, matters of trial and error. But the principle is the same. When it comes to fighting crime, different candidates who are going to have different opinions and different policies for fighting crime are all going to agree, are they not, that crime should in fact be reduced and eliminated. The dispute, the disagreement is not over the principle that people should be protected from crime, but over the policy of how to do that the best way. You don't see a candidate coming along campaigning for the right to crime. Right? They're not campaigning. The dispute is not should we increase crime or should we decrease crime. Do people have a right to commit crime in our neighborhoods, or do they not have a right to do so at all? That's not the dispute. The dispute is not over principle, it's over the policies that try to implement the principle. But when it comes to abortion, the question of whether it should be allowed to kill a baby, the policy is the principle. Think about this for a moment. Matters of crime and matters of, a lot of things, economy, even immigration and all, the policy, there's many different policies that try to implement the principle. But when it comes to abortion, they merge into one because there's a principle, a moral principle that says you can never kill a baby. And the policy is very simple. Either you can or you can't. There's no in between. So the principle is the policy when it comes to the right to life. Distinguish policy from principle, brothers and sisters. And when it comes to matters of principle, you cannot vote to violate it. If you were to vote for someone who supports abortion, it's like voting for someone, again, who supports the right to crime or the right to terrorism. Number 5, Weigh other issues properly. Some people come along these days and they try to say that the biggest issue we're facing is climate change, or the biggest moral problem in our country is immigration. It's not. And it's not. The biggest problem we're facing is abortion. Nothing takes more human life. No right is more fundamental than the right that abortion attacks. Without life, you don't have anything at all. These are the most innocent, the most defenseless, the poorest of the poor, the most marginalized, and nothing is taking more life than abortion. As for those, for example, who will dismiss our arguments about abortion and talk about the crisis at the border and the problem of immigration, well, of course, immigration is an important issue, it's an important problem. But would you please let me know, because I am totally unaware of any clinics that exist around this country by which 3,000 immigrants are being beheaded and dismembered every day. Have you heard any of that? There are hundreds of clinics right now in America, on the other hand, that every day are dismembering and decapitating, shredding and throwing in the garbage 3,000 babies. You think there's a bigger problem than that? I'd like to hear it. Immigration is an important issue. The immigrants are our brothers and sisters. They are human beings. But last time I checked, it is not the policy in the United States of America to legally dismember and behead and shred apart and throw in the garbage 3,000 people a day, killing them, murdering them, and throwing them in the garbage. If you hear anything about that, please let me know. Weigh other issues properly. Number 6, keep your loyalty focused on Jesus. You know, some people belong to unions that tell them which way to vote. Some people say, oh, it's been a family tradition all these years to vote Democrat. Oh, this is how we do it here. This is how we do it there. Listen, there's nothing wrong with belonging to an organization or a union. There's nothing wrong with, respecting traditions in your family. Nothing wrong with belonging to a political party. But all of these loyalties have to be subject to your loyalty to Jesus Christ. You always have to be evaluating and reevaluating, because if something is being told to you within your family, oh, you have to do this because we've always done it in this family, or oh, the union is telling you you have to vote this way, not if it contradicts your loyalty to Jesus. Your loyalty to Jesus has to be first. And brothers and sisters, that applies to the voting decisions that you make as well. Never let them force you or push you or pressure you or even suggest to you that you should vote against a fundamental principle that you don't kill babies. Now, number 7 is very important. Remember, the party matters. What I mean by this is, a lot of times when making a voting decision, people are only thinking about the candidates. You can't just think about the candidates. Oh, this candidate is better than that one. Yeah, you have to think about that. But your thinking doesn't stop there. Because when you put a candidate into office, you're also putting a party into office. You're putting a party into power. These candidates belong to political parties. The more Democrats you elect, the more power the party has. In the midterm elections, they took over the House of Representatives, so they control the committees. They decide what legislation gets a vote and what doesn't. They have a whole worldview. They move all together in a certain direction. Same thing with the Republicans. They control the Senate. You move in a certain direction according to the platform of the party. Parties have platforms. Candidates have their positions, and they outline them usually on their campaign websites. Here's where John Smith stands on all these issues, 1, 2, 3, 4. Well, the parties have a similar list of issues and where they stand. It's the document called the platform. The party platform represents a whole set of policy positions based on an entire worldview, and you have to take consideration of that Because even if a particular candidate might look very good, if the party that that candidate belongs to is not looking very good, and you put that candidate into office, you've brought the party with them. All the people that they're going to appoint, the people are going to work with them and for them, the party that they are voting in lockstep with much of the time. You look at the way the votes are cast in Congress, and you see that the positions that the individual members take are, by and large, the positions that the parties took. So morally, if casting a vote requires considering what the outcome and consequences of that vote are going to be, well, then it necessitates looking at what the party stands for. The party matters. It matters a lot. So votinginfo.net is a website at which we show you the differences between the parties, the different positions of the party platforms. Votinginfo.net, we have a handout that we created in English and Spanish showing you the positions. Be sure to study that. Be sure to understand the party that the candidate belongs to. Now, point number 8, distinguish choosing evil from limiting evil. So listen, Jesus is not on the ballot this year, and neither is the Blessed Virgin Mary. None of the saints are. Every single person on every single ballot is a sinner. Every single person on every single ballot has a past. You can say something bad about every single person on every single ballot in every single election. Do we agree? This is not a quest for a saint. Not only that, but the policies that people have, the policies that they embrace, you can always find something wrong with some kind of policy or position. So if you're looking for the candidate with whom you agree on everything, you will not find him or her. My goodness, we don't even always agree with ourselves. How are you going to find a candidate you always agree with? It's the wrong question. And so, some people say, well, it's a choice between the lesser of two evils. And then people respond to that, oh, but I can never choose evil. And so therefore they come to the conclusion that, well, I'll sit this election out, and guess what? That's choosing evil. Because you're failing in your responsibility to vote. So are we really in a predicament where we have to choose evil? And the answer is no, you never have to choose evil. What you must choose is to limit evil. And that's very different from choosing evil. To choose to limit evil is a good. So when you have two candidates and you say, well, this one is pretty bad, but you know what? This one is worse. Well, then you choose the one that's pretty bad. Because you're not choosing the bad things in that person. What you're doing is limiting the evil that would result, from as far as you can tell, from putting them into office. Choosing to limit an evil is a good. So distinguish between choosing evil and choosing to limit evil. Then, number 9, support the candidate with more than your vote. My friends, when you cast your vote, your work is not finished. Help to elect that candidate in other ways. Give the person name recognition. Let other people know about the candidate's positions. Volunteer for the campaign. Put up yard signs. Distribute bumper stickers and pins and make phone calls for the candidate. There's a lot of different ways that you can support the right candidate, not just voting for them. Get other people to vote for them, and so on and so forth. Again, a lot of recommendations at prolifevote.com. And then number 10, mobilize as many other voters as possible. That kind of flows from number 9. And one of the principles I always articulate here is the principle of the low-hanging fruit. If you it's a numbers game, really, brothers and sisters. What's counted at the end of the day on election night is the number of votes actually cast. Not opinion polls, not the number of dollars spent. The number of votes cast is what gets counted. So let's analogous to an election, let's say that you're in an orange grove and you have to, in an hour, collect as many oranges as you can. You're competing with the other team to collect those oranges. You're not going to climb to the top of the tree to get the oranges that are way out of reach. All that time you take climbing could be spent picking oranges that are hanging lower. You run around and you grab the ones that are closest within reach first. The principle of the low-hanging fruit. Same thing with voting. There are a lot of people who already agree with you. And you get the ones who already agree. You get the ones who already agree and remind them to vote, make sure they're registered to vote, give them the information about who the candidates are that should be supported, get the low-hanging fruit, and mobilize as many people as you can. So my friends, these are the 10 points in this brochure, Voting with a Clear Conscience. Look it up at prolifevote.com. And as I say, we'll be issuing this, we'll be spreading this all over the nation, and we need you to help us too. Final point I'll make, prolifevolunteer.com. We need your help in this election season. Would you sign up at prolifevolunteer.com, and we'll let you know what you can do. You just let us know how much you can do, and we'll work together. So thank you, friends, for listening. We're remembering you in our prayers, and we will be talking with you again later. God bless you in the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. Father Frank Pavone here of Priests for Life.
Hello, I'm Evangelist Alvy King with a very important message regarding the upcoming elections. In the civil rights movement of the 20th century, one of the crucial battles involved securing the right to vote. Because we are grateful to have that right to vote right now in the 21st century, we now have to exercise that right. Too many people are not registered to vote. We at Priests for Life are trying to change that. Go to prolifevote.com to find out how you can register to vote and can help others to register to vote as well. Let's use the rights we have, and let's advance the kingdom of God in the voting booth. God bless you.